This is an Extra 106.3 podcast. To hear more live and local content like this, tune into 106.3 FM or download the Extra 106.3 app. Extra 106.3 and a Second Chance Bail Bonds are proud to bring you Justice Unfiltered. Real conversations with real people from every side of the justice system. From the latest in law and order to the voices of those impacted, changed, and working to make a difference. This is where truth meets transformation. Now, it's time for Justice Unfiltered, presented by a Second Chance Bail Bonds on Atlanta's only conservative news and talk station, Extra 106.3 FM and the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome to Justice Unfiltered on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Matalon. He is the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and a Second Chance Monitoring. And our guest today, former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. He's an entrepreneur and the Democratic candidate for governor here in the state. Geoff Duncan joins us. What's up, man?
Glad to be here. This is a good spot to be.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you. We got so much discussing to get into. There's so much discussion to get into because the first thing, Daniel, Geoff says to me, he was like, "We're not going to get along." And I was like, what? And he saw my Georgia hat and my Georgia shirt, and he was like, I'm a Georgia Tech guy. And then I had to tell him, we were able to.
We both leveled with each other pretty quickly after the initial confrontation.
That's exactly right. It's the immediate, right? Yeah. Because you had a son that went to Georgia?
My oldest son graduated from University of Georgia.
And then
my middle son played football the last 2 years for Georgia Tech, and my wife and I went to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and you're a standout baseball player, which I can't wait to talk about.
Hard to say standout. I barely got drafted, but yes, I did make it to the draft board in 1996.
I don't know the percentage of people that get drafted, but I think it's very small. So I would say standout. But
I think it was the town that I'm from where he got drafted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got drafted by the Florida Marlins.
Okay, all right.
I'm so old, the team names changed. Right. That's what my kids remind me of. It's the Miami Marlins.
Well, that's what I grew up. I'm from
colors.
Miami, so I grew up Florida Marlins. I was there 93 opening game, yeah.
Then I went through my, peace offering. So my son's best friend is a backup quarterback down at Georgia Tech, Ben Guthrie. Love the kid. He's been coming to my house since he was 8 years old, probably even before that. And then we know a bunch of kids on the incredible Georgia Tech baseball team this year, top 5 in the country.
Yeah, they're great. Coach Ramsey seems to be off to the races with his first team.
Holy cow.
Alex Hernandez and so many others are just amazing talent. I mean, these guys are hitting over 500.
It's nuts.
You can't get them out.
It's absolutely nuts. Have you been keeping up with it, Daniel, at all?
Yeah.
It's crazy to see the success. And I don't know what it is. Me as a die-in-the-wool Georgia fan, I don't have any ill will toward Georgia Tech baseball or Georgia Tech basketball. And I only cheer against Georgia Tech when it's that last the last game in November. That's it. That's the only time that I cheer against Georgia Tech. And the rest of the time, man, I hope they do great. I got so many kids from the area that are there, and so many kids that are on the team. I don't know that I could have said that 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Now I can easily say
that's what's so cool. All 3 of my kids, boys, play travel baseball. So there's so many of them that we've played with and played against.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole world into itself. It's an expensive world, by the way, travel baseball.
No kidding.
It's fun to watch, and with so many games being played at Perfect Game in East Cobb and PBR up at Lake Point, most of our travel seem to be, inside the state with some out-of-state travel. But
spending a lot of time up there, a lot of time and a lot of money. He's not wrong. And I can promise you that the money that we spent, which was significant, pales in comparison to what this guy's doing. Daniel Matalon, his daughter is an equestrian, and so he's toting horses around the country.
Yeah, I take back being the most expensive parenting sport possible. You just outdone us.
I not by choice, I promise you.
Yeah, no, it's great though. But
only love for my daughter. That is it.
So, growing up, where'd you grow up?
Interesting story. I lived in 7 states growing up. Started in western Pennsylvania. My dad's job took us every 2 years. We had to move around the country. Did a big lap. Ended up in Alpharetta, Georgia, my senior in high school. Walked into Chattahoochee High School. Tried out for the football team. Met my wife the first day of football practice. She was a trainer, and I was trying out to be quarterback.
Yeah.
Ended up winning the spot, and
nice.
We met. And a couple Waffle House dinners later, and 3 kids. We've been together for a long time.
Dude, man, after my own heart. That's where I go for my birthday, is the Waffle House.
Yeah.
My wife does not enjoy the Waffle House quite like I do. She's from upstate New York. I'm from Northwest Georgia. And so that's what we do for my birthday every year. She knows at least once a year she's going to the Waffle House. Now, we work it in more than that. But that's the definite spot that's on the calendar that I'm getting over to the Waffle House.
And she had no idea what she was signing up for, right? I played college baseball, and that was a pretty fun time. We both went to Georgia Tech together. But then I spent 6 seasons in the minor leagues, so that was the first 6 years of being married. Was in the minor leagues. We loved it, except for payday.
Yeah.
And then getting in the life of politics too. I mean, if she would have probably known all that was coming, she probably would have went to the prom with somebody else.
Are there any correlations that you can draw from your experience in the minor leagues? Maybe just having to pick yourself up, on a tough day when you go 0 for 4 or something, and then the next day you bounce back and you're 4 for 4. Is there anything that you correlate or can use with your experience in college ball, pro ball, that translates into politics, do you think?
Yeah, tons. I mean, life, the older I get, the more I realize life is just a series of building blocks, and baseball is a huge building block. I mean, I learned tenacity and grit at a level that I didn't know I could possess. But I also saw the value of what hard work and focus gave you, right? If you compared the player that got drafted in 1996 to the player at the peak of my career later on, they almost couldn't even be in the same room with each other. I mean, concentration, strikes, execution, discipline, all those things. I think you apply a lot of that to politics, tenacity and grit. Most days you got to show up and be your biggest fan. There's attacks. There's days that seem lonely and hard, far-fetched to think that you can win. I mean, certainly where I started, most of my campaigns I'm always the underdog. I don't like being the underdog, but I seem to be good at it. And also that focus is something that is just it's woven into who I am, and a lot of that came on a baseball field. Look, it's pretty lonely when you're out in the field and 20,000 people booing at you, and you're 3-0 and a guy with the bases loaded and you haven't thrown a strike in 7 minutes. You figure out real quick what you're made of.
Gosh, I'm telling you, you see it all the time. As my son is a college baseball player now, and you see those slumps, and then he calls and he's like, "Dad, I know exactly what's going on. I'm getting out on my front foot. I know exactly what's happening. I just can't fix it.
Yeah.
I'm struggling." And he went through a couple series like that, and I was like, "Hang in there, man," because I don't know what to say. I mean, I have no idea what to tell him except for keep grinding, don't give up, don't give in. Your opportunity will come. You'll do well. Do you think your wife was able to learn from some of those tough times seeing you on a baseball field? Did that prepare her for the tough times that maybe she would see in politics?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget, right when we first got married, we got moved up from High A in Brevard County, Florida, to Portland, Maine. And I come out there and the place was packed. Portland, Maine's a beautiful place to play minor league baseball. It's a AA park. It's gorgeous.
We know a kid that's there now.
Okay,
he's a catcher.
The Portland Sea Dogs. Great town.
It's a Boston affiliate now, I believe.
It's now Boston. It was the Marlins at the time. So I come in the game as the closer. I give up a home run to lose the game or tie the game, something dramatic. And after the game, I come out of the clubhouse, and she's in the car, got tears in her eyes, and she said, "Those people were saying such mean things about you." And I was like, "Look, honey, they all paid money to watch me play, and every one of them would trade jobs with me in a heartbeat. It's
in
okay."
a minute. And
so it's really kind of calloused us up towards attacks and whatnot. And baseball and politics might be different attacks, but it's still the same thing. Folks try to come right at you, and you just defend who you are. And you want to make sure that folks, the voters get to see who you really are, what wires you, what motivates you to do the right thing. And for us, our family motto is doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. It's on a wooden coaster that we kind of pass around between the kids, and that's just what drives us.
Do you think the kids, because obviously they weren't there for all the tough times in the minor leagues, seeing some of that stuff, how do you protect the kids from it?
So I don't think there's any way to protect them when you're taking on a sitting president like I did. I mean, the attacks are real. The kids picking on them at school, the people in the community taking cheap shots at them on social media. I mean, it's relentless, and it still goes on to this day. So we chose to live through the moment and coach through the moment. I think I've got the fortunate pleasure of being able to coach my kids in baseball, all 3 of them, for years on end, and also football. Best job I ever had was the offensive coordinator on my kids' travel football teams.
Yeah,
it was tremendous. But and really kind of coaching through those moments, and we're in this journey together, right? I don't want to protect them in a way that they don't see exactly what my motivation is, because it might be hard for them to wake up one day and see their dad taking on a sitting president that was trying to steal an election, right? I mean, it just. I wanted them to look through my lens and understand my point of view. And if they have a different point of view, then I respect that. But we're doing this together.
Have you run into that with family members at all, where there's a differing, and not that it should cause a rift in a family, But I saw Jimmy Kimmel talk about some things like that. His wife talked about some things like that. Have you ever run into anything like that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and I think it happens in every household in America. I mean, nobody really wants to talk about politics at the Thanksgiving table, just because I think it's gotten to such a visceral edge and divide. That's unfortunate, right? And I think the bigger macro problem to that is when you have visceral divides in your own homes and neighborhoods, then you really are so far away from being able to actually solve problems. I think politics has really proven this point of it's easier to pick fights than solve problems, and that's unfortunate. I think that's what kind of leads us to where we're at today on so many of these issues. I mean, the affordability crisis, everybody wants to talk about it, but nobody's doing anything about it. The healthcare crisis, everybody wants to talk about it, but nobody's doing anything about it. But these are things that are arriving in everybody's life, whether they own a company or work hourly, or something in between. Those things are affecting everybody real time.
Daniel, do you see that in your line of work too?
100%.
You run across some of those things, and I'm sure where there's people that are not in a situation, maybe they've done something, gotten themselves in some sort of situation. You're there to, guarantee their freedom for a while until the court date and what y'all do.
Yeah, it sometimes can take years. Yeah.
And you see people in a bad way, whether financially or whatever, and you're able to help a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're there to support, obviously, in any way that we can.
Yeah. When we come back here on Extra 106.3, getting things done across the aisle, wins that you've had legislatively when working here in the state of Georgia, and hoping to do that again, and how you will work, with people maybe that you disagree with on some things, but find common ground in others. As we talk to Geoff Duncan, who's running for governor here in the state of Georgia, former lieutenant governor, on Justice Unfiltered with Daniel Matalon of a second chance bail bonds and a second chance monitoring. My name is Tug Cowart. This is Extra 106.3.
This is Justice Unfiltered, presented by a second chance bail bonds on Extra 106.3 FM and the Extra app.
Welcome back to Justice Unfiltered on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Matalon of a second chance bail bonds and a second chance monitoring. Our guest today on the show is Georgia's former lieutenant governor and Democratic candidate for governor here in the state, and an entrepreneur as well. So before we get into some of the things that you've done, working across the aisle, which seems to be an impossibility these days and probably needs to happen a lot more, tell me about the entrepreneur part of your life, because you've been a college athlete, you've been a pro athlete, you've been a politician, but the entrepreneurial part, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's a good story. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Baseball got in the way of that, but it was a fun first job to have out of college for sure. So as the tail end of my career started showing up, and you could tell it was coming, I had reconstructive shoulder surgery, and so I knew that my days were numbered. I started to write a business plan to start a marketing company, and I started this promotional products company with my wife and I both 2 weeks after I got released from the Marlins organization. And we started out of our home. And it really was, promotional products, 500,000 different products. We can put a logo on anything. And it was a great first business. We grew it. We eventually hired a bunch of folks, landed some great accounts, national accounts, and eventually sold that business. I wish I still owned it today because it'd be a great family business to have with our 3 kids, but it was a good lick for us early on in our marriage and in our life cycle. And it just kind of led us to a life of being around small businesses and being a part of different opportunities. And now my kids, one's in law school, one is at tech, and he's got a little AI startup business that he's off and rolling.
That's awesome.
Yeah, who knows where that's going?
Yeah, it seems like a big deal today.
Hey,
AI.
you never know today. Trust me, you're going to have more millionaires coming out of this thing.
I don't know if you...
I sure hope so.
Quick.
My fingers are crossed.
Yeah, for sure.
It might
Absolutely.
be
There's a
your
kid in
son.
there.
Yeah,
Dude, that's the thing.
You'll see. I mean, it's great. It's wild.
Worries me a little bit because I saw this documentary called Terminator 2 one time. I don't know about y'all.
Documentary.
That thing worries me a little bit. We always joke on our show. We call it the documentary Terminator 2. Just because of, I'm sure you've seen this too. Everybody's seen it by this point. It was something out of one of the AI companies out in Silicon Valley, and they were doing this test with their own AI, and they were testing it to see how it would react if they said they were going to upgrade it or unplug it. And all of a sudden, the AI starts giving reasons that it shouldn't be unplugged, and then says, "I've scanned your email. I know what you're doing." Even though the people weren't doing anything, it was all part of this test. But the AI started defending itself from being unplugged or being updated. That's why we call it the Terminator 2 documentary, because it's funky. Do a Google search or wherever you get news.
This just got serious in a hurry. I'm now nervous.
But seriously, man, you start, like, of all the things, the great things that it can do, right? There is that little bit of you that goes, what happens if this goes the other direction? You know?
Yeah, it's from a policy standpoint, it's interesting. AI is presenting some challenges. One is from what are the safeguards and regulations that need to be in place because it is growing so fast. But then two, from a workforce augmentation standpoint, I've talked to some investor folks in the private equity world that are really worried about two dynamics. One, GDP skyrocketing because of productivity and profit efficiencies inside business models, but then also massive unemployment at the same time.
For sure.
I mean, we're seeing kind of influences to that. So how do we develop and augment our workforce development in a state like Georgia to really help, have a landing spot for folks in white-collar jobs that are negatively affected by AI, whether it be analysts or investor, financial worlds or consulting worlds or you name it.
And we've seen some of that with Amazon too, I believe.
Yeah.
With more blue-collar jobs.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Just the robotics and look, I can't speak to it intelligently, but I can, when I read the news stories, it all makes sense to me. I don't know what to anticipate. I don't know what to expect out of AI. I really don't. I have no idea. I think there's an opportunity for it to be amazing, and then I think there's an opportunity for it to be terrible, and maybe it lands somewhere in the middle.
I go back to when I was coming out of Georgia Tech, the internet was just really coming online in a forceful, impactful way. And so there was a lot of early folks that you thought were can't miss business models, an AOL or a Yahoo, and those things have just kind of really scaled back. But then the likes of Google and Amazon were kind of the second generation of what the internet looked like. So I think markets will figure out what the winners and losers are. AI's got to figure out how to monetize the AI itself, right? They've got to figure out how do we create a profit model inside of that AI business or create an efficiency. I know the software industry is under kind of heavy weight because of the efficiencies that AI is creating in their subscription models.
Do you see that at all, Daniel, in your world?
What?
AI being a contributing factor, whether good or bad,
it's there, right? So it's definitely there in our world. It just hasn't really fully taken off yet. But I mean, there's models running with it right now. I mean, across the country in the bail world, I would say.
Do you have an expectation of what might come? Do you have any inclination, any guess?
I mean, I have my own ideas of what I'd like to do with it,
Like, give me an example. Because I have no idea.
I mean, look, as the process as we move through this process, right, the evolution of criminal justice and whatever that looks like. I mean, I think obviously it's going to play some sort of role, and I think putting those guardrails, like Geoff was saying, is going to be important because it's just as helpful. It can also be very dangerous, especially when you're dealing with criminal justice and public safety.
Goodness. Go ahead. Do you have something?
No, I think that's spot on. I mean, we've got to make sure we've got adults in the room to help kind of shepherd this process. I think that speaks to a larger narrative. Politics and policymakers have kind of gone off the rails and are all about partisan divides and pulling pins and throwing grenades. But real solutions are going to have to be bipartisan folks sitting in the room, understanding the nuances of industries, understanding the nuances of economic development, and understanding the nuances of technology, and really trying to create a place. And if we do this right in Georgia, then we'll create an economic development opportunity to innovate around. I mean, that's just the mindset I've got coming out of Georgia Tech is that, innovation is, with disruption comes innovation and opportunity.
That's right.
I think we do have a way to kind of build a home for us in Georgia for the AI space.
What do you have any ideas of what regulation should look like at the governmental level? Like if you were governor, if you go on and win the governorship here in the state of Georgia, and what those safeguards look like. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, certainly I don't have enough expertise to understand exactly where the rules and regs should be at, but I do know that we need to build a team of the right people in the room. We need to have a consumer fronting position where they're protected, their information and their security, but we also need to make sure that the economic opportunities are also protected. And then also from the data center world, I mean, one of the biggest questions I get asked on the campaign trail is, where do you stand on data centers? And I think we have to make sure that we drive local control as much as we possibly can so locals can decide if they want to have a data center or not have a data center, have the freedom to make that choice as a community. But also, micro-sized in that is where do they want to build those data centers? Where's an acceptable piece of dirt with,
So why now with the data center? Why is the data center so hot? Because I'm hearing about it everywhere. I mean,
it's really driven by AI. I mean, it takes so much computing power to process these AI algorithms that they're having to build multi-million square foot facilities with these NVIDIA chips and other companies in there. And they're using a ton of water to cool the chips. They're using a ton of electricity. And so micromanaging the process so locals can decide where they build it, but then also making sure ratepayers who are just living down the street in their neighborhood doing their job, going to work every day, don't have to fork the bill for these data center electrical improvements, both the generation, transmission lines, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of nuances, but we got to make sure we put the right people at the table. I mean, I think it speaks to a broader issue. So many times in politics, the key decision makers wrapped around a governor or key elected official are the highest donors. Well, the highest donors don't always equate to the best decision makers, and rarely does that happen. And so I think we got to make sure that we wrap the best and brightest minds around the issue of AI and economic development in a right-sized way.
You'd brought up, why now? To Geoff's point, do you realize to make one picture using AI, it's the same computing power or same energy consumption it is to charge your cell phone from 0 to 100. Like a full charge on your cell phone, that's what it takes to generate one AI picture, and people are doing that thousands of probably per minute.
And that's where I think the innovation comes in at. I think, if you think about the internet going from dial-up to high speed and broadband, I mean, there's been a huge, efficiencies created. I think the same thing. We can create more energy efficient chips. Let's do that here in Georgia. Let's go figure out how to solve that riddle. Let's go figure out how to use waterless cooling technologies instead of using 15 million gallons a day to cool the chips. I think there's opportunities, but we got to be intentional.
No, we do, definitely. You mentioned security, InfoSec, and people's personal information. That's something that I'm afraid I don't believe exists at all. And it's funny. My wife, who's not on social media at all, she has 0 social media accounts. I think she's the smartest of anybody in my house, without a doubt.
Probably.
She's without a doubt the smartest person in my home. But and I this is what I do for a living, so I'm on social media, not nearly as active as I once was. I just I don't know. It's just not a good place, I don't think. So protecting people's personal information, is that a genie that we can put back in the bottle, you think? Or how do we do it? How do we do it better than we have? Because my wife, she always says, because I'll tell her, I was like, be careful, link, she click. She's like, they already have all my information anyway. Whoever they are, the they that everybody uses. But I think there's value in what she's saying. People are to the point where they don't feel like privacy even exists.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, my wife and I's emails both got hacked last night.
No way, are you serious?
Yeah, no kidding. We had to go in. I called her. I was going to a fundraising event. I called her and said, "Did you change your password?" And she goes, "I was just going to call you. I got an email."
Oh no!
And so we were able
click
to
on an errant link or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It happens to everybody.
We'll do a deep dive, but we quickly changed our passwords in 5 minutes and rectified the issue. But no, it's real. I think you've got encryption and you got blockchain and you got all these other new technologies. It's certainly a concern. I do think it's an area of risk. I think when you even speak from a national security standpoint, it's an issue, and we constantly have to stay out in front of it because bad people don't just stop. They don't necessarily sleep. They're working 24/7 to try to crack the riddle.
No doubt about it. I'm just to the point where I think my wife is right. I don't know that privacy exists anymore, and I know I'm supposed to believe that Google is going to protect my privacy. But I don't. Do you believe that? Because I don't believe it. There's 0% of me that believes that's the case. And I'm singling out Google, and I don't mean to. I just mean big corporations, big companies. There's a reason that people are buying, crazy information all the time. And then you start adding in smart speakers at your house, which I have one. I'm not doing myself any favors with this. But that stuff's scary to me. And you talk about national security. I do believe it is a national security issue, man. There's all kinds of things that could come out of private information that you want to keep secure and you want to keep private. And I just don't know that exists anymore. And I'm not necessarily looking for an answer, but I think most people are concerned with it.
Yeah, no, they are. And I think our job in Georgia is to do the best of our ability from a state level, but also I think there's an opportunity to continue to prepare our workforce for that cybersecurity workforce that is going to continue to be necessary and well paid and will survive through ebbs and flows in the economy. And so if we can graduate kids from our high school and with a certification or send them to a technical school or send them off to a 4-year school, that creates a workforce that hopefully competes with the world.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up. Is college what it used to be? Is it as important as it used to be? Tech schools are booming right now because there's, like, I'll give you an example. I have a cousin who's much younger than I am, graduated high school, let's say, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. He went to college. He decided not to go to college, and his parents were upset by that. And he was like, I'm going to go to lineman school. And now he's got more work than he knows what to do with. He just got married. He's in his early 20s, just got married. He could buy a house, but they don't have time. And I'm wondering how they're going to have a relationship because he is physically always on the road, always working. Do you have an opinion on college versus tech?
Yeah,
like a tech school.
The historical track to a career is totally different, and I think and that's great, right? We don't have to jam square pegs through round holes.
Sure.
And go off to 4-year colleges if that's not where somebody wants to be or the career path they want to work with their hands. I think some great stories as I travel the state and go visit some of these training centers for the labor unions, watching these individuals like come out of high school and immediately start working, immediately start getting benefits, immediately start training and building a career. And to hear some of the financial tailwinds that these folks get early on, I mean,
this kid's got, that's the one I was telling you about. He's got so much money in the bank.
And it's twofold. One is they're not racking up $100,000+ worth of college debt. And two, they're able to start earning right out of the gates. Now, that's not for everybody. I've got one son who's in law school.
Sure.
He's got to go to college, and
of
then
course.
he's got to go to law school to be able to
practice.
To practice. Maybe one of my other sons goes a different direction. For me, my first career, I got drafted as a junior out of Georgia Tech. It was a great education. It was a tremendous opportunity educationally, but I decided to take the draft and run with it.
Let's talk about doing things in a bipartisan manner, because you said it earlier, and I tend to agree with you that seems like a thing of the past. It didn't really even seem to exist anymore.
It's so important, and I learned this lesson really early. So I got elected in 2012 out of Forsyth County, which is a 90-10 Republican district. So I was expected to show up at the Capitol and just throw red meat to the crowd 24/7 and never worry about another reelection. But as soon as I walked into that building for the first time, I just saw the inefficiencies to the partisan fist fight over stuff. And I just kind of promised myself I was going to build bipartisanship relationships on every piece of legislation that I tried to touch. And I learned that lesson early and often, because I think when something passes, whether it be the General Assembly here in Georgia or Congress, straight down party lines, it always does a great job of making a point, but rarely making a difference. And so when you do pass this stuff that's bipartisan, not only do you have buy-in from both sides, but you have input, right? It means that the legislation meets the standards of kind of both sides of points of view. And so I've worked with Stacey Abrams on passing one of my biggest healthcare bills ever, the Rural Hospital Tax Credit. She was actually against my bill to start with, and I said, I got you. I understand that. I respect that. But would you make any recommendations to improve it? She gave me 3 really good ideas. I put them in the bill and ended up getting almost unanimous votes in the House. So I took that same mindset to the job of lieutenant governor. And one of the big issues that we faced in the post-2020 pandemic, or in the throes of it, was civil unrest. Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. It was on social media. It was terrible. I talked to his mom. It was just a heartbroken woman. And I said I wanted to pass the hate crimes legislation. And we worked in a bipartisan way to pass that hate crimes legislation. I walked into the Democratic caucus meeting and said, I need your help. And built a relationship with folks in that room that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's important. That one specifically, for sure. I just don't. I worry if bipartisanship exists anymore, and I know you've cited examples, but it seems to be getting less and less. The funnel, it's almost like it's funneling down to almost nothing.
And here's the reason why. I think if you sit down individually with Georgians, and I do every day, all day, right, sitting in groups of 1 to 500. They'll say almost unanimously they want that. They want bipartisanship. They want to see problems solved. They want somebody to really figure out how to lower child care costs, housing costs, gas prices, all that stuff. They want to figure out how to get affordable health care. And they know that that's going to take a bipartisanship. But the problem is we've now built our policymaking only around campaigns. And so there's a playbook. There's a cheat code to win a campaign. Demonize, polarize, and politicize everything that your opponent's doing. Win the election by a nose. And then you show up as damaged goods, right? Once you show up to the job. I'm trying to do this the right way. I'm trying to build my campaign for governor on policies looking forward, on actually solving people's problems. And so I don't show up as damaged goods. I haven't pulled pins and thrown grenades in every corner of the room so that people are out to get me once I finally get in there. I hope to work with Democrats and Republicans to make this a better state. I reminded one of my opponents the other day on stage at a forum, hey, look, when one of us gets elected governor, you work for 11 million Georgians. Even the people that don't vote for you, your job is to still show up and work for them too.
That's right. I don't know that that news, and I work in media. I don't know that news does itself any favors because it has capitalized on polarization. It doesn't matter if you watch MS Now, which is on in the studio, or in Fox News, it's on in the other studio. They both do the same things. They just do it in reverse order.
So I always champion this notion of the power of two, the power of three. One, the power of two is if you really want to be an adult about this, you got to go get somebody who's on the other side of the aisle or the other side of the issue and just talk to them. Not because you're trying to change your opinion, but because you're trying to gain their perspective, right? You're trying to understand why they're in a certain position, and it softens the edges. The power of three is you've got to be mature enough to gather your information from more than one media source, right? If you just show up every day and turn on Fox or MS Now or CNN, and that's your sole source you get, then you're only going to get look through their lens. Turn on a couple of different TV channels. Pick up a newspaper. Pick up the Wall Street Journal. Pick up the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Turn on MS Now. Gather information as an adult. Don't just stare at the same 15 people on Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days. Actually be a consumer of reality, not just of opinion.
And that's what most news has turned into at this point, is opinion. It really is. Who would be somebody that you would go get perspective from? Somebody that maybe you disagree with, somebody that is even on the other side of the aisle. You said go get who would you go?
There's a great story. So there's a guy that was my seatmate in the House. His name's Dewey McClain. And God has a great sense of humor. I showed up as this raging red Republican on paper as a state representative, and he was a Democrat, played in the NFL. I played professional baseball. I mean, the differences go way deeper than that. He was a president of the labor union groups. And I sat there and talked to him for years on end and gained so much perspective on issues and understanding. And I not only found a friend and laughed at his jokes, got to know his family, but he literally changed the direction of my heart. I literally opened up my eyes to those families wrapped around the axle of poverty in a way that, I never wanted again to walk out of a restaurant or a building and see somebody that was homeless or hungry and figure out or be expected to blame them for their issue. I wanted to go figure out a solution. It was front and center in my mind why the importance of doing that. And look, I still to this day, I gather opinions from all corners. And as governor, I will too.
Who would you go to that is active now? Like, is there somebody that you would be like, okay, that's some person that I can go get some perspective from, and then we could sit down together and try to solve Georgia's problems? Yeah, some of them. It's some all, but you know what I mean.
I'll point to two different governors. I think Roy Barnes has been somebody I've gotten to know really well. It's been almost 30 years since he got sworn in as the last Democratic governor, but he's got great perspective. He's a smart individual. He's a great communicator. I think also to the flip side, Nathan Deal was a great governor. I served under him. He used to be a Democrat, became a Republican in the early 2000s, but he had an incredible focus on criminal justice reform. He had a firm understanding on health care. He served in Congress for a number of years. So I think those are folks that I learned a lot from.
What about folks that are currently active under the Gold Dome that might be, if you were elected, that would still be there? Is anybody that you would go to or you feel like you could go to?
Yeah, I think there's a whole slew of folks. I think at the end of the day, like I've got a gentleman, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to share. He's a Democrat. He reached out to me this morning. He wants to come by and talk about some policies. He's going to come by the office. And, the average conversation with Republicans this day is they put their arm around me and they look both ways to make sure nobody can hear or see them. And they'll say, hey, man, I'm really proud of you for doing the right thing. And so I'll work with those groups. And I think there's a lot of Republicans, certainly skeptics, right? When I launched this campaign, there was skeptics. But I think we've pushed a lot of that skepticism aside because I think a majority of Republicans want to see Donald Trump get out of the way, and they also want to see folks get their problems solved.
When we come back on Extra 106.3 and Justice Unfiltered, let's talk about your vision, if you're elected governor, your vision for Georgia families, fairness, the justice system, everything under the sun and under the Gold Dome as we do Justice Unfiltered with Daniel Matalon, the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. Our guest this morning, former Lieutenant Governor and Democratic candidate for Governor Geoff Duncan. My name is Doug Cowart on Extra 106.3.
Now back to Justice Unfiltered, presented by a Second Chance Bail Bonds on Extra 106.3 FM and the Extra app.
Welcome back to Justice Unfiltered on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Matalon of the Second Chance Bail Bonds and the Second Chance Monitoring. Our guest, former Lieutenant Governor. He's an entrepreneur, and he's also the Democratic candidate for governor here in the state of Georgia. I want to talk to you about your vision for the state. What makes you different than other Democrat candidates, other Republican candidates? What makes you best prepared, and what is your vision when you are governor?
So I've got a resume of both as a state representative and lieutenant governor of turning chaos into conversations. And I think that's an important, not just a talking point, but an operation style that I think folks recognize that I bring to the table. Look, it's been nearly 30 years, as I said on the last segment, since the Democrats won the governor's race in Georgia. And that's because you got to win more than the base to be the governor. And I'm the only one building this coalition for this to get Democrats, independents, and this batch of disgusted Republicans that are showing up in droves to show up and vote for us, and not just win a primary again. I mean, that feels really good for about 6 weeks.
Sure. And
then you lose the general, and you're back to square one. This election has got Donald Trump directly on the ballot, right? And I think a majority of Georgians don't want to see Donald Trump vis-a-vis the next Republican governor actually run the state of Georgia. And so I think this is an opportunity. But the leadership style is one that focuses on meeting all 11 million Georgians where they're at. I'm focused on three things: the affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and the Donald Trump crisis. I think Democrats have tried to be everything to everybody for far too long, and it's just impossible to show up not as damaged goods when you show up in the general election. I'm focused on affordability, healthcare, and Donald Trump. Even Republicans are worried about those same three things. They may not say it out loud, but if you buy them a six-pack of beer and give them 2 hours, they will. They'll tell you exactly what they're worried about.
What's your direction on affordability? How do you make it cheaper? How do you make it more affordable for Georgians?
So as governor, you've got some levers in your hands. Not all of them. I can't make Donald Trump wake up to reality that tariffs are the worst thing that this country's done economically in maybe a century. But what I can do as governor is take 10% of our state's rainy day fund, $17 billion. Let's take 10% of that, $1.7 billion, put it in a jumpstart fund to start wrapping our arms around those individuals that are stuck in that vicious cycle of poverty. So we can better invest in the CAPS program to directly lower child care costs so that single parent can actually go back to work now. Where we can start to lower child care or transportation costs, where we can lower housing costs. There's things that we can do. The TANF program, I mean, we have a TANF program that's underfunded, and it essentially says, we'll help you if you're in poverty, but you have to wait 6 weeks to get the money, and you have to work full-time and get less than minimum wage to even qualify. We can do better. We also need to expand Medicaid. At the end of the day, we cannot send, and I'm saying this as a former Republican who's literally explored every route possible. We cannot expect this to work out well if we send over 1 million people to the hospital without health insurance just because we want to give tax breaks to billionaires. Right? That's what Donald Trump wanted to do. Folks have lost their place on Medicaid. They've lost their ACA subsidies, and like me and probably everyone else listening, has been affected by the astronomically increasing prices of health care for their families. Those are the things you can do as governor, and you can do those in the first 100 days, but there's other things that you can do. Even Republicans know we need to pass common sense gun legislation. Right? 90% of Georgians want universal background checks, red flag laws, and in-home safe storage laws. Let's do that in the first 100 days I'm governor. Let's expand Medicaid. Let's also take on the real issues of affordability. So there's things that you can do as governor, but you got to be focused. And you can't think about trying to win partisan elections. You got to think about solving problems.
There you go. What about talking to the Republicans, maybe that voted for you when you were a Republican? How do you speak to them directly if they're jaded or they feel like that maybe you've abandoned them? How do you convince them that you haven't?
The best leaders I've hung around in my life have been involved with leaders that lead by example, and so that's my aim, right? I'm not going to talk somebody out at this point in the race at 2026, nearly 6 years after the 2020 election. If somebody still thinks that election was rigged in 2020, I probably don't have much for them. So I'm just going to agree to disagree on it and move on and stay focused. But a majority of Georgians, I think, are waking up, even Republicans, watching Donald Trump play out real time on television and real time in social media and seeing the disasters that are, the tornadoes that are created intentionally. It's a Ponzi scheme that he's running, right? I think most Republicans realize it. They're starting to feel it, and they want to see something different. I'm more moderate minded, and I give the Democrats the best chance to win, and I think that's the gravitational pull that's now got us in the polls up to second place. I mean, we started this journey in dead last. Former Republican shows up day one as a Democrat. Now we're in second place. We're positioned well to make the runoff with Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I like my chances.
What would you say to someone that maybe they're they saw Keisha as the mayor of Atlanta, and they're like, yeah, I'm Team Keisha. How do you talk to them to get them to vote for you in the primary?
I think I just keep talking about my solutions to the problems. I think I just keep highlighting real-time on-the-job experience. As lieutenant governor, I sat in the front row. I watched how important the job of governor is. I'm not going to have to ask a lot of questions from folks and figure out how the budget works. I know how the budget works. I know how the programs can be augmented in a way that aims them towards all 11 million Georgians instead of just a handful of wealthy individuals. I know exactly what we have to do to expand Medicaid. I know how to have those conversations inside the General Assembly day one. I know which Republicans want to actually play ball because they're tired of making excuses for MAGA. That's the kind of coalitions I'm ready day one on the job. And I think that's the conversation I want to have with Democrats, even if they are supporting one of my opponents, is to say, look them right straight in the eyes and just say, hey, I'm the best person to win this election, but I'm also the best person to do this job.
What's the experience you feel like that you bring that maybe Keisha wouldn't? And then if you get to the primary and then you get to the general, whoever you would run against, you have a better resume. I think
one, it is the on-the-job knowledge of how the job operates. I mean, the three most important things the governor does is set the original draft of the budget, which is very minimally changed from the point that they introduced the budget. They build the state agencies in a way that's operational, and they serve as the chief negotiator. I've been in those rooms before with Democrats and Republicans. I understand what their heartburn is. I've been behind enemy lines as a former Republican. I know what their talking points are. I know what their soft spots are. I know that they know common sense gun legislation needs to pass. I know that they believe truly that the heartbeat bill needs to be repealed in a way that meets millions of women where they want to be met. I was wrong as lieutenant governor at the time to think that a room full of senators knew better than millions of women. They don't. And day one, I'll sign that executive order that lets doctors practice medicine and repeal the 6-week ban.
What would be one thing? Let's say you get past primary, you get to the general, you win the general.
Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one.
What would you like? What's the thing that you would do different than say Brian Kemp has done? And what's your grade for Brian Kemp if you were to grade him?
I think Governor Kemp's done a good job. I think he's done a good job growing the economy. I'm certainly proud of his efforts on the 2020 election when he stood up when Donald Trump was trying to steal our elections. I'm excited to take this state from a good direction and take us to a great direction. And to do that, I think we need to aim more of the budget towards more Georgians. We need to have economic development in 159 counties. We need to expand Medicaid so people don't have to wake up and bankrupt themselves if they're sick one day. So there are things that we can go from good to great. I'm excited to be a part of that journey. And day one, I think it is to take that budget and day one on the job and create that jumpstart fund, that $1.7 billion to really help give. And it's not a handout. This is an investment in Georgians. We have $17 billion sitting in there making interest. Let's go invest that back into those folks. Are we going to bat 1,000? Is every dollar that we spend, that we put an affordable roof over somebody's head or stop that working mom from having to sleep in the back of a car with her kids or couch surf? No, but it's certainly going to make a big difference and allow them to participate in this growing economy that we've got.
We appreciate you spending time with us today. How do folks find out more about you? How do they get a hold of you?
Go to DuncanForGeorgia.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at Geoff Duncan GA, and that's Jeff with a G.
There you go. Absolutely. That's important. Absolutely. Let me spell it out for you. Geoff, Geoff Duncan. On Justice Unfiltered here on Extra 106.3 for Daniel Matalon. Jeff, I'm Tug. This is Justice Unfiltered.
This is an Extra 106.3 podcast. To hear more live and local content like this, tune into 106.3 FM or download the Extra 106.3 app.